Good.
All right. We're live and we're recording, guys. So I'm really happy to see all you guys here. We're going to concentrate on the successes, I hope, but also some of the challenges of serving large enterprise. And we put together the panel because you come from very sometimes similar, but also diverse viewpoints of the industry. We have both Infovista, who provides a platform and sees across a lot of service providers and enterprises. The big regional global players of this is going to be challenging. T-Mobile for Business and Lumen, otherwise known as Sprint and Level 3. And then, Marc, you kind of sit in a wholesale and an interconnect model, also working directly with enterprises. So I'd like, you first got to just start out by introducing yourselves and just a second on, how you guys participate in particularly the SD-WAN market, but anything else to do with cloud networking that you want to discuss. So, Marc, Marc Harris, do you want to kick it off?
Thanks, Gail. Yeah, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. We come here with all the headwinds of COVID and everything else that we're adapting to, of completing one of the largest telecoms mergers in history, and certainly the longest process in terms of T-Mobile USA and Sprint coming together to become sort of the third or second largest wireless carrier now in the US with tier one capabilities on the wireline side. My responsibility is leading the international divisions outside of the US as we journey towards the converged solution and the era of 5G that we're particularly excited about in terms of how that's going to impact connectivity and how we're going to utilize the spectrum advantage we have in the US and the partnerships we have around the world to expand the journey towards digitalization, which I think we're all talking about today in terms of how that's accelerating and how we felt that was going to take years and is in fact taking weeks or months. So, we are looking forward to the discussion today. Appreciate the invitation, Gail, and I'll hand over to you or to Marc or to Bruno or Daniel to introduce.
You can hand over to Marc, the other Marc.
Hi, everybody. My name's Marc Daley. I work for a company called Epsilon. We're traditionally a wholesale telecom services provider. I think the angle and why it's relevant for me today in this conversation in particular, and I'm a strategy guy, is the sort of the creep of enterprise towards our market based on the type of sort of service provider Epsilon is, where we've been very much promoting and heavily at that programmable networking, network as a service, cloud configuration, and what we've tended to find is that as I attend events and we attend events and talk in the market, that enterprises are evolving in terms of how they access and consume and even orchestrate services, and they're asking us questions and asking us for services, even though we didn't used to actively target that market. We serve the carrier and mobile operator community, in particular ISPs. So I think I've got an interesting angle coming maybe from a different direction today.
Okay, great. Hey guys, I hear echo in the call a little bit, so maybe if this will make it, I don't know if you guys can mute and unmute as you come on. That makes it more challenging, but I do hear some echo. I don't know, Ellie, whether others are hearing echo. How's the sound quality? I don't see any complaints coming in. Okay, sounds good. So it might just be on my end. So we had both Marcs speaking. I'll go to the final service provider before going to you, Bruno. So Daniel, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Gail. Yeah, so hi, it's really good to be here. I'm Daniel Burke. I'm the product manager for WAN services in EMEA for Lumen. So for those of you who missed our multiple rebrands, we've gone the last few years from level 3 through CenturyLink and now out into Lumen just recently. And that's really a part of our strategy of we talk about the fourth industrial revolution and how data is going to be very, very important in that. And cloud networking is really critical to that, both SD-WAN and building on our infrastructure, but also our cloud services, security, collaboration. It's really and providing those compute capabilities where the customer wants them, whether it's in the cloud traditionally at the network edge or on customer site. So it's really providing compute where it's relevant and where it's most useful for the customer's applications.
Great, thanks. I'll never remember Lumen. It will always be level 3 for Marc, Harris, and I. But how are you two? Okay, Bruno, can you introduce yourself?
Sure, Gail, thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Bruno Duran. There's nothing to do with Duran, the famous band, right? Well, it's a French name, not an English name. Well, actually, I'm heading the European sales organization for Infovista, or in other words, getting close to my customers and understanding their pain points. Give you that 20-second headlines on who Infovista is. Well, Infovista is the leader in modern network performance. Our portfolio covers enterprise and service provider. We help delivering what we call remarkable customer experience from SD-WAN to 5G. So on the service provider side of the house, we work with 1,500 network operators, and we've been, for the last 2 years, very active in planning and testing 5G network for these customers around the world. On the enterprise side of the house, we are what we call a leading global SD-WAN provider. And actually what we do as a company, we provide full-flavor SD-WAN solution with advanced security for complex infrastructures, non-disruptive path through to SD-WAN. Well, in one sentence, what we do is we help customers to drive I've heard the term already, and I think we're going to use that extensively today. We help customers driving successful digital transformation by not only securing, but also controlling performance in what we call today extended edge network environments.
Great. Thanks, everyone. So we've kind of set the stage now. I just want to remind the audience that you're free to type in questions at any time. We'd be happy to have them from you. We have plenty of questions ourselves, but it's always great to hear what's on your mind. So do come in and ask questions as we go along. Marc, Marc Daley, I'm going to go back to you for a minute because you do stand a bit in the interconnect market, cloud connect market, and you kind of have a bird's eye view on one of the topics we were talking about earlier, which is the kind of changing role of networking. Who's providing the infrastructure? How are these networks being interconnected? Can you talk a little bit how that is affecting both the supply chain or the chain of services, and how you've seen maybe some of the large enterprises starting to behave a little bit differently, coming into different points within the chain than what you would typically expect?
It's a pretty good question. What I might do is actually start at the top, Gail. So what I'm seeing, and particularly in my role as well, I'm kind of brought in normally to be kind of evangelizing something or other, and or looking at kind of different angles of solutions. And recently there was a big project that emanated out of Europe, driven by a car manufacturer, where that car manufacturer essentially has very telco-like functions now within its own organization. And that manufacturer was looking at going direct to source to take connectivity to enable its application environment, but to take the connectivity, plug it into its own system environment so that it could command and control the network itself. So whereas traditionally, say, someone like Epsilon or level 3 in the past might actually either directly address that through sort of let's call them manual services or through a third party. The actual orchestration and articulation of the solution was driven by that particular very large enterprise. So in terms of changing the dynamic of the actual verticalization of the provision of these types of services, what we're seeing is two ways. Either companies like Santander was famous when they started that company Produban years ago. I think it's called Santander Global Services now, where they're kind of bringing this capability in-house and bringing the expertise in, like young dudes who understand not only the very thin top level of connectivity, but also one of the virtualized functions that they can build solutions themselves. And it also opens up, we've seen a lot more activity in the managed services environments where, as they're building their end-to-end solutions and integrations for these mission-critical interfaces, both to app and even eyeball, as the internet guys say, to app, they're saying, okay, it's mission-critical, tick box. You need mission-critical connectivity to underpin that, not just sort of using public internet. And so there's this kind of middle ground in terms of the type of service between internet and sort of private networking point-to-point, using common interconnect infrastructure and having that really accessible and presentable up to the enterprise. So it's opening up the big doors for the MSPs. And I spent a couple of years working for Capgemini, heading up alliances and service lines in the UK. And the SIs like recurring revenue, and telecoms are really good recurring revenue. So it's definitely a growth area. So I see as well companies like us being kind of sucked up a little bit closer to the enterprise, as long as we present our connectivity and our services in a really easy, consumable way. If we don't, if it's still old school, old forms and stuff, then I think we're still kind of kept down the bottom. There has to be a middle person. So I'm not sure if I answered the question.
Yeah, it's a good start. I'm going to move on to I'll go to you, Daniel, and then to you, Marc. You're both, you operate, your companies at least operate in multiple regions around the world, and you offer, I think, both pretty fully managed services and also some platforms that might be closer to resale than a managed service. Can you just give, starting with you, Daniel, kind of what you see, particularly in the European region, and if there are big regional differences between the mix of resale, not resale, which types of managed service they like in SD-WAN?
Yeah, thanks, Gail. It's interesting. We have this conversation with our North American colleagues quite a lot about the differences between customers in EMEA and customers in North America. Typically, we find in Europe, customers are looking for the managed service. And they're looking for the complete service wrap of everything, whereas more so in North America, there's more of people are expecting to put the thing together themselves. They want a bit of technology here and something there, and they're expecting it to run themselves. So there are different expectations sometimes that we have to explain and put across. But definitely more of a managed service effect with customers in Europe. But of course, SD-WAN also has this self-service, co-managed, call it what you like, aspect of it that people are expecting to do something themselves, and also because it's early, some customers have actually implemented themselves, and now they're finding maybe it didn't quite work, and now I need to take a managed service. So there's lots of different dynamics. It's not just as simple as in Europe people behave like this, in North America they behave like that. It's where are they on their journey, because some of them will have gone in early and some of them are now coming to it with different perspectives and different appetites for doing things themselves to others. So it really varies.
How about you, Marc?
I follow on from what Daniel was saying, and I go a bit further. I think there was this kind of like silver bullet approach to SD-WAN marketed itself as a few years ago, and customers felt, why are we paying carriers a lot of money to manage our services when we can go and do it ourselves, right? And in some larger corporations who had the IT staff around them to do that, went down that path. But to Daniel's point, quickly understood that it was another layer of complexity they had to manage, and relationships with vendors in different regions who have different styles, different standards, different ways of doing business, and that's the difficulty. So I think there is a trend now back to, can carriers manage it the way they have always traditionally done on our MPLS networks? Secondly, I think regionally based, there are so many options out there still for SD-WAN. I mean, I think last year there was about 60. This year there's probably 80 plus variants of SD-WAN. And also companies are beginning to acquire those technologies. We've seen VeloCloud acquired, Silver Peak acquired, Viptela acquired. There is a consolidation going on. And I think on that perspective, you can't, if you make a decision, you may well rue that decision down the track. And in regions like Asia, where you've got China, which is a very exceptional market, SD-WAN is flying out the doors, but it's flying out the doors from China Telecom, China Unicom's perspective, not from any other carrier, because it's very expensive to get traffic outside of China, where it's very economic to use SD-WAN in the country. So I think there's regional discrepancies there as well. And it all comes down to connectivity options, I feel. We take it for granted in Europe, there are a lot of connectivity options. But if you dig deeper, actually, there is a lack of good quality, high-speed broadband services to enable SD-WAN. Fiber services and 5G, I think, is an upcoming disruptive technology that's going to change that perspective. But there's a lot of complexities in SD-WAN that I think is barriers to people adopting it. And I'm only seeing, in the polls we do, Gail, probably 20% of our customer base have actively either looked at SD-WAN and deployed it, or are considering now on points of concept with providers out there. And that's not a high percentage. And I think that's actually slowed down through COVID as well, because people are just saying, look, connectivity, cost savings, how is their network going to look as we come out of this pandemic? And let's hold off making final decisions on that basis.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, and thanks for raising that, because a lot of carriers aren't brave enough to say it. But we've seen as well, while there are some spectacular take up, mainly usually inside a national market, mid-market. I think the service provider side of the of SD-WAN, it's taken longer to ramp than a lot of players had hoped for, with a lot more sales in pre-sales effort than hoped for as well. But Bruno, you sit at a kind of nice junction point, because you deal both directly with enterprises and you support the sales organization. How do you see this picture of managed service? Do you have an ideal type of managed service provider for serving the large enterprise?
Well, indeed, yes. Just to come back on what Marc and Daniel say, yes, the SD-WAN adoption varies really between one theater to another, right? I mean, I think the North American market, the largest one, is a very mature market. We see a lot of customers doing it on their own, while in other markets, there is a clear shift towards managed service providers, right? That's a given. Asia Pacific, I think Marc mentioned that as well, while there are some requirements and costs associated to getting traffic and out of countries like China. It's very expensive though. Outside of the price sensitivity, this is the highest forecast country we've seen around the world. So there is a boom into the demand of SD-WAN. While in the European market, we do see that is a very emerging and rapidly growing market as well. There are more options for connectivity, as Marc mentioned as well, but clearly this is market which is evolving. So if we look now at the managed service providers, are we putting quotes, the ideal managed service provider we will look at? There are a couple of things that are popping up on the top of my head here, and it's probably 5 of them. The first one is an MSP should start proposing SD-WAN as business first managed service, right? Focusing on the principle that application equal revenue. That would be mandatory for me, right? Current service providers, I mean, what we do see today in the current service provider landscape, they offer SD-WAN mostly as RFP fulfillment to satisfy some requests from some vendor technology, right? And this is, to some extent, limiting the customer focus on actual business problem and making SD-WAN a purely technical network evolution program, which is not. This is a real business issue for customer. The second thing I would be looking at is like fast and easy deployment, right? Shortening the deployment cycle is going to be key for the customer. I mean, providing quick and efficient services to their customer, for our customers, is one very important trend. So maintaining a coherent network visibility and application performance should be a priority. And then adding to that, pricing, flexibility, and simplicity is going to be important. So all of that we talked about earlier on, providing a way to a smooth transition to digital transformation. And if you look at digital transformation, for me, there are two pillars. The first one is the customer experience. And obviously, none of us in this room will accept accessing a service or any application with, endless delivery time and endless response time from the application or the service. And the second pillar will be security. So none of us will access a service or an application providing private data, confidential information to the service or application without making sure the service is 100% secure. So security is going to be super important. So having a managed service provider that is providing the right level of connectivity and security end-to-end is going to be super important. And last but not least will be a non-disrupted pathway to network upgrade. That's super important, right? Transparent capability will allow the MSP to immediately address network performance issues while rolling out SDWAN at the customer place. That's going to be important.
Okay, so that's a kind of high bar,
that's
you guys.
A lot of requests.
First, I just wanted to ask, Marc, you're really close to the sales process. Would you agree that most of your demand is coming more as procurement than as kind of you've gone out and sold a managed service? Which way is it coming in the door? The customers picking the technology and then saying, oh, I need someone help manage it, or saying, wow, I really like Sprint's managed service and I don't really care who they're using to deliver it?
I think it's a combination of both, Gail. I think obviously we've got a lot of customers around the world that want to make the leap, and they're looking for our guidance and how we get from here where we are today to where we need to be tomorrow. And it's been accelerated again by COVID because the traffic levels are the same across our network. They just come into our network very differently. All of our customers are looking at connectivity options and reducing costs because right now they've got people scattered all over the place versus in the offices they used to have. And they still need to have this digitalization effect. They still have to maintain their mission critical data, but they've now got the security issues that more of a remote workforce has got to bring in. And as I say, they're most of them believe in the hype that SD-WAN delivers. It's that silver bullet approach, right? So, our job is to make sure that we cover as many options as we can. I think eventually, SD-WAN will morph into SD-Edge. And I think I've heard people on the panels earlier on talk about SASE. I think that's where we're going. And I think ultimately us as carriers, we've got to provide a connection, a secure connection into the sort of SDN fabric around the world that allows people to use whatever medium is best for them, connectivity-wise, be it wireless, be it wireline, broadband, whatever the variant is, and provide that security. And we as carriers have got to provide that the entrance into it. And that's really our challenge, and that's where we're going as a business. And whatever technology we decide on, we'll morph into having that in our own network cloud. So I think as Gartner put it, we'll see access and security coming in together, and that will be our plan. And I think from our perspective, as more and more people are remote working, wireless becomes more and more relevant in terms of an access mechanism. And I think we're seeing that trend already in rural America, where AT&T have announced they're not taking any new entrants on their DSL platform. 5G is now a direct replacement for that with its lower latency and higher throughput. And I think that's what we're going to see more and more. But it all comes down to the connectivity into the SDN fabric that we're going to be focusing on.
Great. And Daniel, do you see it the same way, or any variations on that theme?
Yeah, I think some customers will come saying, I want flavor X of SD-WAN, and actually you have a discussion with them. So, well, actually what you want is SD-WAN, not flavor X. And then others will come and they'll be highly well read, and they'll come and they'll throw a data sheet. When can I have this? Because obviously things are moving fast with remote access requirements. But I think it's interesting the comments about people backing off. I've from SD-WAN. I think people have through COVID. I don't think it's slowed up. I think now we're seeing nearly every request coming in is assuming a network transformation is going to be there. They're not always expressing a particular variant of SD-WAN, but they know that that's where they're going to go. And obviously these are generally enterprises with multi-year contracts. So they're if you're issuing an RFP, it's a strategic decision, which is great, because that really it needs that level of alignment within the organization for it to implement successfully. So yeah, I think people are encouraged and enthusiastic, but also pragmatic about the benefits of the various flavors that can be provided.
Great. I don't know if you guys caught Antonio's presentation, but he threw down a little bit of a challenge, saying vendors sometimes win in these accounts. I mean, win in the sense to push it to DIY or force their particular solution on it, because they're the ones that are putting a lot of skill and time into the relationship. So we'll come to Bruno in a second, but how do you guys view how prepared your account teams are to guide it, or how prepared your vendors are to support you in the process? So talk to me a little bit about the pre-sales and these POCs and pilots. Are they a burden, or do they go easily?
If I'll start, just really kind of about the engagement. Now, carriers, we've always kind of been underestimated in terms of our consultative approach, but really now our salespeople much more have to be consultative and solution orientated in when they're talking to their customers and potential customers. And it's not about trying to fit a product in anymore. I mean, we have a lot more skill set, a lot more products that are way more tweakable. It is really now about sitting there and, from a networking perspective, I know Marc and these guys sort of take the same approach as well, is we kind of have to analyze the solution twofold, or at two levels. One is the application experience and the movement of data. So our technical pre-sales people are doing application-orientated network designs now, which is forget where a router is or a cloud stack. It's where are your apps? What do they interface with? Do you manage these yourselves as an API hub? Where's the API hub? And then drawing out the underlying network to enable that, whether that interface is mission critical, etc. So I think we're doing kind of okay as telcos. I think everybody on this call, probably salespeople, have evolved into thinking more like that and having the technical pre-sale support behind. But it's actually kind of being able to deliver that, which is always the challenge for product and engineering and now developers.
So Daniel, you're the product guy on the receiving end of the creative technical sales guys. How do you feel about it?
Well, I think absolutely. I mean, the words application landscape came into my head when you were talking, Marc, which is what we talk about in Lumen. Is, where are you going? Where are your applications today? Where are they going tomorrow? Where do you need the data to flow? So you need to start with that, and that's why there's a lot of engagement up front and our a lot of technical expertise we put in the pre-sale. So our account guys are able to understand the customer motivations, but we've got loads of technical resource there understanding where the network is and what it needs to be, so that you don't get these surprises later on, because it's a network rollouts many months, and so you need to take the customer on a journey and explain where they're going to go to. So as I said, it's all about, they need to know where their applications are. It's not just the network guy, maybe in the past, coming along wanting to save 10 or 20% by saving a bit on MPLS. That is not what SD-WAN is about. And when I see occasionally account guys telling me that the customer's looking to save some money, a bit of an alarm bell going on there, because that isn't really what SD-WAN is about.
Yes, but all CIOs ask for saving money as well.
I know they will, but it's not just that.
Certainly.
But it's interesting you talk about that as well, because what we're seeing is also some interest from the enterprise in things like internet exchange peering. It's like, well, three-quarters of my traffic is really kind of internet type traffic. Is there a more efficient way to do it than throw it over, say, public internet interface? Yeah. And if you can see the growing segmentation in the IXs here in Western Europe, you can say, actually, when you see banks joining internet exchanges, you have to ask yourself.
Oil companies. I saw a couple of oil companies. So, I mean, this kind of leads into a whole nother topic, unless, Marc, you wanted to... Marc Harris wants to jump in on the last one. Otherwise, I'm going to kind of move on, because you guys have talked, quite a bit about the state of the market and how you're coming into it. But Marc Harris, you said, things really are changing because of the remote working. That's our sense as well. It's not that SD-WAN is going away, but people's building strategy is changing. It's in full flux right now. So what I'd be interested in is, have you guys done any specifically new services or new bundles to address it? Or is it, just changing and the traffic patterns are changing, but you really haven't addressed it at a service bundle level or a specific capability? You want to start, Marc Harris? And then
I can have a go at this one, Gail. Thank you. Again, I think definitely if you talk to some of our major clients, and one major client we were on a call with last week, they had 20,000 seats in London. They're utilizing less than 1,000 of those. So, and they don't anticipate in the next 12 months going back to a 20,000 employee-based organization. That's just in London. So that's huge if you think about that across the whole industries, right? And, those of us that have got good broadband connectivity to our houses, take it for granted. But that's not everyone. And that's not just the UK, that's everywhere in the world, right? There's such a variant in connectivity options. Yeah. And then you overlay the security aspect of it, which is the most critical thing. You've got so many more access points into your network, and they all need that access to critical systems. There's a huge change going on in how our business is going to be in the next 3 to 5 years. The bandwidth into our organization, in terms of everyone making the migration to cloud, the bandwidth in March, requirements and upgrades that were coming in was significant. I mean, March was probably our best upgrade month for many, many years, just because people were seeing an uptick in capacity. And, if I look at it again, it's like, we need to provide a journey into what people want traffic to. 4 years ago, 90%, 80% of traffic was going from enterprise desk to enterprise desk. Now, 90% plus, I would wager, is going to the internet. It's not going direct enterprise to enterprise. So the whole traffic mechanism is changing. But it comes back to one common thought, and that's like, the connectivity options that you've got, and how you enter the network, and how you get access to the internet, how you get access to the enterprise, how you get access to SaaS and to the cloud. That is the biggest headache of what we're having to deal with. So that's where, we're paying particular attention. And as I said, I think there is a lack of good quality connectivity options outside of the urban areas. And I think all those predictions that people were making, that 60, 70% of people are going to be based out of urban locations, big metro areas, that is beginning to be shaken on its head because of COVID. So I think you go outside the metro areas, the choices get less and less. So I think we're having to look at more and more access and become more and more access agnostic, and how we manage those variants. And that's where the future of this sort of MSP is going to come from.
Okay, that's interesting. Bruno, I'm thinking, certainly that I can understand the infrastructure-based carriers and the connectivity issues. But during this time of pandemic, one of the other shifts, of course, is application performance in this new environment, because it's a different beast. If you're coming from a well-controlled office environment, or if you're coming from your home. I don't know if you've been able in Infovista yet to see any kind of changes in how people think and manage application performance in this new environment.
Yeah, actually, I mean, with this crisis we are all facing and living now, we've seen obviously some new use cases, and I hear a lot of echo. I don't know if it's just me, but I apologize for that. So we see a number of new use cases, and remote work solution is one of them, right? With everybody working from home now. So remote work solutions for business continuity and business resilience, right? That's basically enabling the business to guarantee the quality of experience, right? Quality of experience, that's very important. That's basically the perception of the users on the service itself. So the real perception, physical perceptions. So enabling the business to guarantee quality of experience from the remote workforce, and also providing high availability for critical employees on networks outside of the corporate office. So that's a clear and brand new use case we've been facing, and we've been providing solutions for over the last 6 to 8 months right now.
Okay, thanks. Daniel, how about you? Any new services, new packages?
Well, it's certainly, COVID has certainly thrown up and raised the priority of remote access, to be honest. If I looked at what we were going to be doing 6 months ago, it wasn't really, it wasn't
a
there.
lot of people were on
and now
1990s remote access solutions.
Exactly. So now that's becoming absolutely vital for us to, and we're addressing that. Yeah, and it's just, our customers know about it. They're researching it. They're saying, I'd like a piece of this, please. Yeah, that's definitely one thing that has changed as a result.
And are you approaching
COVID
it differently, like building it on the cloud, or is it still pretty traditional remote access?
I think we're building it pragmatically to meet our customer needs.
To
be honest, there's a bit of
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. No. There's some internal discussions. Well, is this the right way? Well, okay, but we can do this now, and it's acceptable, and we'll move forward. So yeah, when we understand, Lumen is a company. We closed our offices, and we're not going back until next year. So we understand everyone's situation. So yeah, we're having to respond quickly, which is what we're doing.
I see a comment in from the room that it's from an enterprise perspective, it's hard to justify a technology like SDWAN without cost. And I think it's two edges of the same discussion, because yes, in the end, it's hard to justify any migration of technology unless you provide a stellar improvement to the core business. And there you got to know the business processes and what's driving revenue, or you got to pay for the migration some way. It's kind of the feeling that we see in the market. So that's a dilemma we all face. I wanted to just we only have a few more minutes, and I kind of wanted to end the discussion going back to some of these concepts of co-managed, which we talk about a lot. And I don't know about you guys, but I think it's a somewhat troubling topic for a lot of carriers. And it's not something that people like. If you go, I mean, there's a different problem if you go into places like AWS or others, in that there's so many things, that you can touch and do. You don't know where to start, and you don't know how to do it. But there's no concept of the enterprise not being able to do exactly what they want to do and see what they've done and see everything that they have. How advanced do you think carrier plans for co-management are, and what are some of the barriers to really getting there? So, Marc, I'll start with you. I know, Daniel, you have some thoughts around this as well, but Marc, Daley, let me start with you.
From my perspective, it's around the kind of tool set and visibility, I think, and training and presentation and partnering. For me, that's kind of to the last question, what have we sort of seen in the big change in this year in particular has been that, not so much related directly to COVID, but understanding we're going to be talking to a partner or an enterprise company that wants to co-manage. What they essentially need is the same tool set that we have, with sort of different tool drivers, different indicators as well. And it's how you present those out. I think it's a lot of investment in terms of that visibility. So with co-management as well, it's like visibility is control, even if you can't click on a button to actually change a behavior. So I think from my perspective, we've had a lot of investment in that. I've just completed last week, I guess, re-energizing, so to speak, our channel partner program as well, because what we've seen is companies coming in and saying, well, we want to be able to do this, but we don't know that we can do it all ourselves, whether we're trained up to do it as well, and it's actually then maybe part of another solution, or we just need your help. And so it's the tool set for us, exposure of the function, control of the function, visibility, and a big training kind of program behind. We're spending a lot of time virtually, I guess. If it had been 2019, a lot of time at the customer premise and the partner premises. But that's the, I guess, the impact that we've seen, a change in terms of that kind of co-working, co-solution, and co-management.
How about you, Daniel? How real is co-management, or is everybody coming back to, well, it's a managed service after all, and we'd prefer not to do it?
Well, I think it's interesting. I think people have, to some extent, the hype and the message about SD-WAN that you can do many things yourself with a click of a button, it has been a great story for people, and some customers come with a great appetite of wanting to be able to do this all themselves. But one of the other things about SD-WAN is it's about easier management of the network, and that is predicated on a sort of foundation of templates and being able to easily configure the whole network and not doing it on a per device basis. And so you might have a great appetite, but you need to understand the foundational concepts in order to be able to do that efficiently, because otherwise you might actually make changes which then actually reduce the benefits you're getting from SD-WAN. So that's a bit of a tension. And then as people go through the process of implementation, their appetite kind of waxes and wanes about, well, because obviously with power comes responsibility. And yes, you can do stuff, but we're also offering a managed service. So there's a bit of it's a bit of a dance, I think. There's a give and take and an exploration for each customer about where they want to go and how much they want to do. But it varies, as all customers do. They vary in their characteristics and their appetite for this, and we have to work with them, and obviously within the confines of the service that we're providing. So yeah, it's really a lot of time spent. As Marc said, it's an absorbing topic for us, but it's we're all on this journey together, and each customer comes with their own journey about where they want.
I think it's almost like the people in the company as well, and their mindset. I've got two examples of born in the cloud companies. One is a real estate company that started here and is really massive now globally. And they gave us like a 1-page, 5-paragraph RFP to set a new office up in Chicago, because we do points and stuff as well. And it was like, here's what we need. We need to make telephone calls. We need a SIP trunk. We need a data connection, and just do it. And then there's another massive board in the cloud, let's call it a transport company, that wants to do everything themselves and wants to take your toolkit, got an SDK, give me an API, and we're going to build it ourselves, and they're quite happy. And yet they're both born in the cloud company. I think it's very much down to the internal approach of the organizations, whether that starts at the CPO or whatever, but also the type of people you're into working with, and what's their background. Have they just left uni because they're sure as hell they want to do it themselves? So it's kind of difficult to ring fence.
Okay. Well, we're getting pretty close to time now. So I thought maybe we'd just do, for those who want to, one quick last round of if there was something you could have known before you started selling SD-WAN and supporting SD-WAN. What's a mistake or a learning experience that other carriers could benefit from. So it's a bit of out of the left. So Marc, you're usually willing to take these things on. Do you have any lessons learned?
It depends which Marc you're talking about, Gail. Yeah, hindsight's always a wonderful thing. And, when we selected our first SD-WAN partner, that company was the market leader by a long, long way. And then they were acquired, and their purity, if you like, in my view, started getting diluted, and their market share suffered as a consequence. I think, when you've got 80 odd variants in the market, it's very difficult to choose the right partners. And again, I think, we've come a long way in understanding that there is no silver bullet in SD-WAN technology out there. No one supplier has got it all cracked. So I think you've got to stay open-minded. You've got to have, most bases covered. But ultimately, I think us as service providers are going to absorb that technology into our networks in some shape or form. And I think it will be along the lines of SASE, and I think it will be along the lines of having an access agnostic approach into that fabric from a wireless, wireline perspective. And I think that's where the leaders will emerge. But I'll be interested to see how many variants of SD-WAN are left in the next 2 or 3 years. So that's my lesson.
Yeah. Whether it will atomize or whether it will shrink.
Absolutely.
Okay, how about, I know, Bruno, you're pretty new to Infovista, but you have a long history in serving enterprise. So do you have any lessons learned?
Yeah, lesson learned, especially around the SD-WAN market. Probably, Marc, you're right. Probably not a single vendor got everything right. I do believe that Infovista got most tick in the box and a lot of expertise and experience. But I think one thing is important when you pick up a vendor is the partnership you can build with a partner, right? We talk about support from an SE standpoint, from professional services standpoint, but we go one step beyond. I will look at also some of the use cases and references these vendors do have and how they've been able to deploy some of these solutions into real customers. I mean, just take the example, I was talking to a customer last week in Italy, which is one of the famous and oldest financial institutions called Banca Popolare di San Rio. And actually, we've been able to deploy in less than 2 months, 650 sites for these people, because we built a real true partnership and we've been focusing ahead of the curve on what was business pain point for them, whether it was around application performance, around security, around routing, but all this we were able to work with them ahead of the curve, and in record time with very agile and flexible solution being able to develop a full flavor SD-WAN solution for these customers. So partnership is going to be key, especially when you see the market shifting towards managed service providers.
Great. One more? Anybody have a really awful thing that happened? Marc, okay.
Yeah, we got some flesh wounds. We were very early adopters.
I remember that.
Very well-known emerging SD-WAN brand that was then acquired subsequently. But one of the things that we learned, maybe too late, was in talking to the SD-WAN service provider, or vendors, I should say, there's two customers for somebody like us. There's us, and there's the end customer or the enterprise as well. And at the time, they did not really have a full understanding of that. And that was a big problem for us. The other element as well is that ultimately SD-WAN is an overlay technology. So how do you make it really work for different underlay technologies as well? I don't think that problem's being fully solved right now. I think that's an opportunity. And the other thing is, I wish I had acted early. I think the ISPs are missing a big trick right now. I've got a router downstairs with just a little bit of thin SD-WAN functionality. They could charge me, my company, more to have a thin layer home experience. And I wish I had been thinking about that 18 months ago.
Okay, great. Well, Daniel, you're going to be saved by the bell because I just see that the main stage has gone live, and you can save your awful stories for later. But I'd like to thank all of you guys for an interesting and open discussion. And head on over to the stage if you want to. You'll be hearing Bruno from some of your fellow platform providers, and you guys from some of your suppliers. So well, thanks for participating, and look forward to the next time.
Thank you, Gail. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you. Thanks.